Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye olahadi samya samputoshi.
Namo saranto suchedoye olahadi samya samputoshi.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛。Cliff, can we knock some of the volume off that? That's too loud by about a third. Just if it doesn't echo is when we want it just right. Okay, little more. It's still too hot. I can hear a echoing in there. Little less. Okay. How's that? Still too loud? I think it's still too loud. Yeah, too loud. Less down. Yeah. When I can, there we go. That's nice, right? You don't hear that in there. Very good. Okay, what do we say? We say, 师父上人各位师兄大家阿弥陀佛. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. My name is Heng. It is Sunday the 15th of September here in the Gold Coast of Queensland. It's Saturday night in Berkeley, California, and other places where this lecture might be folks listening in. So if you're here to attend a talk on the Avatamsaka Sutra, you are in the right place. So we're going to be talking tonight about marvelous lotus flowers that emerge out of the ocean and form the contemplation of a monk who is getting an incredible, who's about to get a teaching from the Buddhas. So that's our topic in the pilgrimage of Sudana. So let's continue with our protocols to get us underway. Here we go. We would like to acknowledge the Kombu people, the Ugambi language region, as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where the monastery is located, and we pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 我们就是说恭敬地承认 冈贝语族的贡布玛丽人，是我们寺院所在地的传统实施者和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从来没有放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。Bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000劫内佛法呀，万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报贪我后的。Okay. That does it for our protocols. Hey, all right. Good stuff. Pilgrim Sudana, on his way to Buddhahood, has come to the ocean side. His new teacher is a monk called Haiyun, ocean clouds, oceans of clouds. And the topic so far has been, let's see here we go. The topic so far has been the Bodhi resolve. We've established that Sudana has made that deep resolve, and Haiyun is explaining to him the benefits of making the Bodhi resolve, what happens when you can do that, and how that integrates with a life well lived. So the next thing that happens is that in our 53 encounters that are going to successively unfold here as we explore the merging with the Dharma realm, Ru Fa Jie Ping, this chapter. That's the first order of business, is establishing that the pilgrim has made the Bodhi resolve. That's the first question. And what follows next is the teacher outlines his practice or her practice. 21 of these teachers are women, interestingly. And we're right at that point in this third encounter. So our teacher, Haiyun, has started to tell his story. So let's look into it right now. What does he say? Here, I broke it down last time. So let's take a look here. It's right there. Here he is. Here's our guy. Notice he's got a thought bubble over his head. So in a cartoon, this is an illustration, so it just, we're trying to give form to something that is formless, his thinking. So here's a thought bubble, and here's a Buddha sitting on a lotus, and the lotus there's some effort taken to show the lily pads, and the Buddha is sitting in full lotus there. He's surrounded by an aura, and there's a lot of ocean water around him. Okay? He's sitting in full lotus himself, the bhikshu who's the teacher, sitting on a mat, and he's on a seat, and he's got a censer beside him, a little Buddha image. So this is a place where he's set up to meditate. Does that look anything like your meditation room at home? You could take that as a model, This is how it's done in the Sutra. Oh, don't do that. I tried to enlarge it and I lost it. There we go. Bring it back. There we go. Okay. There he is. Okay. So now down below is our pilgrim. There's Suda, depicted as a child, as a boy. He's not really. He's a young adult. Okay, there he is. Now, he says, I have been contemplating the qualities of the ocean for 12 years, he says. That's how I've been cultivating. And he says, look at what I've learned. I've learned that the ocean is 广大无量，深深难测，见似深广无量众宝，奇妙庄严，极无量水，水似不同，不可思议。无量众生之所住处，容受种种大圣众生，能受大云所语之语，无增无减。Qualities of the ocean that he's looking at, he says, this is what occurred to me. He says, I've lived in this country for 12 years, and my spiritual state is related to the ocean. He says, that's the deal for me. And then he comes up with what he means by that and how this has helped his meditation. He says, the ocean's vast and extensive beyond measure. It's profoundly deep, hard to fathom. It gets deeper and wider the more you go into it. Jewels that are rare and wonderful and beautiful are found there. The water gathered by the ocean is just no way to measure. Imagine, if you had to say how much water is contained in the ocean. The colors, as you look at the water, with the light playing on it from night till sunrise to day, bright day to sunset. Limitless living creatures live there. Creatures with big bodies live there. And when it rains, the ocean can take it all. It doesn't increase or decrease. Okay? Those are the qualities that our teacher points out, the things that come to him. And of course, he's talking about the mind. Let's just run through it one more time. Thinking about, just change ocean to mind. Vast and extensive, profoundly deep, hard to figure out. Gradually deepens the more you meditate with it. There's all kinds of wonderful, beautiful jewels in the mind, compassion, kindness, etc. The water that is there, the thoughts that are there, the moods, the troubles, the blues, the afflictions, the illnesses that are all there in the ocean, in the mind. Colors, you can just match all kinds of thoughts. These are the states of mind contained in the mind. Limitless living creatures live there, all kinds of creations that come out of the mind. Creatures with large bodies. You could say everything that the world is made up of has been a product of the human mind, everything that impacts our lives. And no matter what kind of situations arise, the mind can hold them all. Sometimes it breaks, but we tend to adapt. And it doesn't increase or decrease. It's still just the mind, right? So that really works if you take the ocean and just equate it with the mind. Then he goes on, he says, good man, 上男子, he says, 我思维的时候做是正念，世间之中颇有广博过此海法，颇有无量过此海法，颇有深深过此海法，颇有殊特过此海法. He says, good man, I had these thoughts when I was contemplating. He says, is there anything wider or more extensive than this ocean? Is there anything more immeasurable than this ocean? He says. Is there anything more deeper? Is there anything deeper than this ocean? Is there anything more rare and special than this ocean? Once again, swap out ocean for mind, and you've got a real meditator. This is somebody who spends his time with his mind. He's, for how many of us is the mind like a no-fly zone? We don't go there. We only distract the mind. We only entertain the mind. We only allow the mind to play with it, give it something, so it's to do anything to avoid looking at the mind, right? So here's someone who is not that way. He instead is deeply involved in contemplating the mind, and these are the things that emerge. Okay, there we are. That's our prelude for today. And he now, at this point, something remarkable happens. And this part of the text is purely narrative. This is just story. We can try to find correlations to, metaphor or similes, or it's not. This is just a story. This is what happened next. Are we ready? Here we go. Let's read on. 善男子，我作是念时，四海之下有大莲花忽然出现，以无能胜因陀罗尼罗宝为经，废 or 大琉璃宝为藏，盐浮檀金为叶，沉水为台，玛瑙为须，分福布户，米覆大海，百万阿修罗王，持持其经。Okay, we'll go to that point and then pick up later. Good man, he says, as I was having that thought, contemplating that way, suddenly from the depths of the ocean, a large lotus flower emerged. Invincible Indranila jewels made up its stem. Viduriya gems formed its calyx. Jambonata gold made up its petals. Sinking in water incense made up its platform. Carnelian formed its fine filaments. It bloomed with a lush fragrance that covered the ocean. And 1,000,000 Ashura kings upheld its stem. Okay. So he says, oh my, suddenly as I was contemplating, this lotus flower came out of the water, came out of the ocean. And then he goes on to describe it. And these are Indranila jewels, Viduriya gems, Jambanata gold, sinking in water, that's Chandana incense, carnelian. These are all jewels, and many of them are aspects of the spiritual realm. So if you want to go find Indranila jewels, if you want to find Jambanata gold and Viduriya gems, no. These are some of the, like mani, which comes up later. It's one of those things that you look it up in, encyclopedias and you can't find it. It's mentioned all over the Avatamsaka Sutra, but so it's taken as a fact of reality, a fact of life, but it's visible only to those who have spiritual vision. Okay? It's one of those quasi, no, it's not even quasi, it's genuinely a spiritual entity. But to say that here in the realm of science, we measure it, we can find it somewhere on the planet, dig it out of a mountain, pull it out of the ocean, it's not one of those things. So, when whoever has opened their spiritual vision, let us know about mani gems, about Indranila jewels and Viduriya gems and Jambanata gold, all right? So some of these things we can just absolutely point to and say, here it is, in your experience and my experience. Some of the things have to require us to get beyond prajna paramita, get beyond duality to find these. These are the description of Haiyun Bicho talking about this lotus. That's one of those things, okay? So it's one of those spiritual realities that will wait for us to wake up before we can point to it and identify it. So nonetheless, these are treasures. They're priceless, unavailable treasures. And the stem, the calyx, the petals, the platform, the filaments, those are all aspects of a lotus flower. The next thing he talks about is not visible things, but scent. A lush fragrance covered the ocean from the lotus. So he says it appeared to the eyes and it also appeared to the nose. Okay? Now we launch into another section of description of the lotus. Here we go. We're going to go all the way down to... We'll go all the way down to spirits for the next section. Here we go. 百万阿修罗王，持咫尺其经，百万摩尼宝庄严网弥覆其上，百万龙王予以香水，百万迦罗龙衔珠璎珞，及宝藏带周匝垂下，百万罗刹王痴心观察，百万夜叉王恭敬礼拜，百万千塔婆王种种音乐赞叹供养，百万天王玉烛天花，天满天香，天烧香，天抹香，涂香，天抹香，天妙衣服，天床翻盖，百万梵王头顶礼敬，百万金居天合掌作礼，百万转轮王各以七宝庄严供养，百万海神住时出现恭敬顶礼。Here we go. Here it is. A million Ashura kings upheld its stem. A million nets adorned with mani jewels hovered above it. A million dragon kings rained down fragrant water upon it. A million Garuda kings dangled strings of beads from their beaks and jeweled silk ribbons which hung down all around it. A million Rakshasa kings contemplated it with thoughts of kindness. A million Yaksha kings bowed to it with reverence. A million Gandharva kings praised it with musical offerings. A million celestial kings rained down celestial flowers, celestial garlands, celestial fragrances, celestial burning incense, celestial paste incense, celestial powdered incense, wonderful celestial robes, celestial banners, streamers, and canopies. A million Brahma kings bowed in reverence. A million gods from the pure dwelling heavens placed their palms together and made obeisance. A million wheel-turning kings each made offerings of decorations made of the seven jewels. And finally, a million ocean spirits appeared simultaneously and respectfully bowed. Okay. So, what a lotus flower. It's not just your average lotus. This is a very special emergence from the ocean. And we go through a series of being, go through a lot of millions by 100 times 10,000. And it's so descriptive that we get a flavor of the Avatamsaka's adornment and ornate. If this were, let's pull back here. It's decorated beyond imagination. If this were a movie, can you imagine? You'd have to go to computer CGI to get all these incredible extensions of beauty, but beyond beauty. It's not just beauty in the sense of pretty, it's spectacular. It's beyond description almost. And yet here's the sutra pointing to a million. Is it really a million? Yeah, beyond a million. But a million is a way to encapsulate what's going on. First of all, Ashura kings opposed. Asuras are one of the Dharma realms. Asuras are those beings that fight with the gods for control of the heavens. In Greek mythology, they're called Titans. And they are nasty and mean, and they love to compete, and they have to win. And yet here, what are they doing? They're holding up a lotus stem. because of their strength and their size. They're the ones respectfully subduing themselves and not fighting, not competing, not being nasty and mean. And they're showing respect to the Buddha. Okay, that's underneath the lotus. Above the lotus, nets adorned with mani jewels hovered above it. What kind of net is adorned with mani jewels? Indra's net. This is indeed Indra's net that is above it, decorating it. Indra's net is this famous adornment in the palace of Chakra, where every place there's a knot, every interstices in the net, there's a perfect pearl, and each pearl or mani jewel reflects all the others, and the totality always returned back to a single jewel, which then reflects every one. So one and all in one. There's this breathing function, only showing the reality of the mind again. Now, who else is there? Dragon kings that come out of the ocean. There's the 7 famous dragon kings that are known by name in the Avatamsaka Sutra, who are oceanic dragons, but there's also dragons that from space, dragons in the air, dragons on the land. But these particular dragons are here from the water, and they're saluting it with fragrant water, ganlo, right? This sweet dew that they only do this when they want to show their highest reverence. Next are Garuda kings. Garudas are part of the what are called the Tianlong Babu, the Eightfold Pantheon of Dharma protectors. Garudas are called pung birds in another telling of it. Sure enough, Garuda Airlines is the airline of Indonesia. They take, as Indonesia has proudly associated their planes and their entire airline service to this mythological, it's there in spiritual space, but you have to have your eyes open to see Garudas. The legends of Garudas fill folklore east and west, north and south, but these particular Garudas are known as the roc, R-O-C, the pung bird, who eats dragons, and only because the Buddha was able to make peace did they come together as his Dharma protectors. So here they are. What are they doing in this case? They emerge to around the lotus. They're part of the lotus's following. They dangle strings of beads from their beaks and jeweled silk ribbons that hung down just as a decoration, just to adorn the lotus flower. And now, who else? Rakshasa kings, followed by Yaksha kings. Both Rakshasas and Yakshas are ghosts. And Rakshasas are famous for being incredibly bloodthirsty. They eat humans in their unregenerated form. Before they meet the Buddha, they're the stuff of nightmares. And yet here they are, contemplating the lotus with thoughts of kindness. The Yakshas, speedy ghosts, Sujikwe, bowed to the lotus with thoughts of reverence. And I love it that the Avatamsaka takes us into the mind of ghosts, into these, maleficent, terrifying creatures who, because of the Buddha's virtue, subdue themselves, transform themselves. And they're no longer man-eaters. They're here to increase the goodness of the scene. Their contribution to this, the Dharma environment of Master Haiyun is kindness and reverence. Who's next? Gandharvas. Gandharva kings show up. These are not just your ordinary garden variety Gandharvas. These are the kings of Gandharvas. And what are they doing? They're there doing what they do best, which is make music. Gandharvas show up all over the Avatamsaka Sutra as part of the Tianlong Babu, the pantheon of spiritual beings. And when There's a chapter in the Avatamsaka called Shensho, the Worthy Leader chapter, and it describes that when the chief among gods, Shakra Devanam Indram, who corresponds to Lord God in the Christian pantheon, never mind, when he wants music for a party, he lights a special incense, and as soon as that fragrance touches the air, the Gandharva kings, no matter where they are, can smell it, and they will come, that's their signal, to bring their banjos and their tablas and their rhythm instruments, and come to make music for Shakra. Now, Gandharvas, we have visions of what a musician looks like. Apparently these Gandharvas are no joke. They're spiritual heavyweights, and they make music, but they also have their own kind of awesomeness. And it's important. We lump them together in this pantheon with these other beings, yakshas and garudas and things like this. And yet, if we were to encounter one on the street, we would probably be terrified and look for a place to hide, because they're awesome. And yet, once the Buddha starts to turn the Dharma wheel, like the rest of us, all of these spiritual heavyweights admire the Buddha and want to be like him. So their thoughts turn away from harm to beings or oppressing us towards finding a way to maximize wisdom and compassion and service. So their way of doing it in particular is by offering music. And interestingly, kinnaras are not mentioned here. The kinnaras fall away, and also the maharagas are not part of this list. They show up later on in this chapter. But the kinnaras are another of the eightfold group who make music. I think that's so interesting that the spiritual beings, 2 out of the 8, are dedicated to making music and offering it up. So we'll come back to that later. Who's next? Devas themselves. Here come the gods. 1 million gods, kings of the gods from the various heavens, rain down what? Raining meaning they just throw it out there, and there's so much of it that it looks like rain coming down through the air. What? Flowers, garlands of flowers, fragrances, that would be incense. What kind? Incense you light, incense that you rub on, which in the traditional world was the deodorant, basically. Powder incense that you put in censers. Then what? Robes, banners, streamers, canopies. These are all from the category of offerings that are suitable for the Buddhist events. And what's interesting about this is that these are things that almost anyone can afford to offer. It's not the case that only rich people can make offerings like these. The devas offer up the finest quality of these because they have more blessings. Can you imagine what incense in the heavens must smell like? Imagine what celestial robes must look like in terms of weight, in terms of warmth, in terms of style. Must be something that Paris and Milan can only dream of, and New York and all of these haute couture, the capitals of style and fashion. They're still working with human bodies and human fabrics and the best of our designs. When you get into the heavens, something you can fly in. Yes, Henri, I would like something. I'm going to fly into a party tonight. Can you whip up something that looks good in the wind, right? So devas have a whole other quality of design that they bring to it. 3 kinds. This is interesting. Banners, streamers, and canopies. It's in Chinese. It's chuang, fan, gai. This is a whole realm of adornment that I didn't appreciate before I started reading sutras. And the only kind of flags, they're flags of a country. We just went through the Olympics, and victorious athletes would robe themselves in the flag of their country when they won. Other than that, where do you see flags? Well, airports, on board ships, boats, fly flags, pirate flags, flags of the country, signal flags, and then in the military. That's where flags appear to show where the army is, or where the king, or where the generals are, flags. But the idea of banners, streamers, and canopies as something that is part of decoration, that never occurred to me until I got to Gold Mountain Monastery. And here, Gold Mountain was a traditional Mahayana temple, and there were, by the side of the altar, there were fabric hangings, vertical, because Chinese is written vertically. It was Namo Ban Shi Shi Jia Mo Ni Fo, Namo Da Yuan Di Zhang Wang Pusa, Namo Da Bei Guan Shi Yin Pusa. These homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, homage to Ersto Bodhisattva with his great vows, and homage to Guanyin Bodhisattva with a great compassion, written with Chinese characters, and there was always beautiful colors and fabrics, greens and reds and golds, and it was quite marvelous. And the way they say you don't really see space until there's a line that divides it, likewise, you couldn't see the air in the monastery until these banners defined it, hanging in space. So beautiful. Then there were those that were horizontal, the same thing, with the same kind of messages, homage to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And again, they were beautifully created out of fabric, and they had streamers hanging down. And then canopies. Master Hua went to, he was never one to go to families for offerings, because that too easily became a source of competition among the lay people. You know, oh, Sherpa came to my house, didn't come to your house. And we do that. We fight for honor and status. We want to be the best or the first or the only, right? However, one day, Sherpa went to the East Bay, down to Hayward, to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Ha, Vietnamese elders. And Mr. and Mrs. Ha were long-time disciples and very sincere. And Sherpa took Sangha members down to an offering there. And as he got out of the car, the Ha's had a canopy that traveled and put traveling shade for Master Hua. It wasn't that the sun was so hot that day, it was just the honor, this beautiful pink-purple silk canopy that they held as he walked. And we all went, never seen. And it wasn't just a parasol, it's not an umbrella, it was a genuine canopy, something very grand with layers on it. And they had brought it from Vietnam, and where I've seen it also in Thai Buddhism. Elders and dignitaries will walk under canopies. So after that, here in Buddha Hall, the Gold Coast Dharma realm, because this is Shurangama Monastery, the planners who designed this gave us canopies here in the air. They're so big and beautiful, you kind of don't see them because they're so big. But it's got the Shurangama mantra verses around it and lotus flowers on it. And indeed, in the lotus, the name of the Shurangama is the Dabai Sangai, the great white canopy, which is a Dharma of protection. And there are phrases in the Shurangama mantra that evoke the Dabai Sangai, the great white canopy. Sadando Bodala, right? So it's, here we are, we're in this whole new traditional ancient realm that outside of Buddhism seems to be totally gone. Where do you see marvelous canopies? You say, well, I got it out in the patio by the barbecue, yeah, by the pool. Okay, that's good. We just as a way to keep the sun off our heads. This is another realm of adornment that helps us kind of define space. When you've got a canopy or a banner or a streamer, you have a whole other relationship with empty space. So here are the devas bringing this down for the Buddha, for the lotus flower. Now we leave, who else are there? We leave the devas who make offerings, who are by and large in the desire realm. The thing about Buddhist, we last week here at Gold Coast, Dharma Master Jinyong told us a lot about Buddhist cosmology. He had a lecture series, which I highly recommend. It's there on DRBA, the Dharma Realm Live, and CTTB Live, YouTube channels. A series of lectures on the layout of the Buddhist cosmos, Buddhist cosmology, which is, again, I don't speak from experience, but I'm convinced that as soon as you open spiritual vision, the Wu Yan Liu Tong, the five eyes and the six psychic powers, this is just so self-evident. It's just, this is the way it is. Here's how the world is made. Without that special vision, when we're here in the realm of duality and limited by eyes and ears and nose and the mind with its language limitations and thought limitations, we can't see it. But it's not that it's not there, it's just that we're on this side of the veil and on the other side of the veil. This is so obvious. So the way Dharma Master Jinyong's lectures gave a whole thorough explanation of how the sutras describe that realm. Now, the heavens are part of that, and heavens plural. I grew up Methodist, Protestant, and heaven was not well defined, but it was definitely pointed to as a destination. We want to get to heaven, be at the right hand of God when we die. And that was pretty much as far as it got. And there was also a description of hell. So there was an afterlife. Christianity does talk about an afterlife, but it was two choices, heaven or hell. And we wanted that one, not that one. So when you get to Buddhism, oh my goodness, heavens are plural. In what's called the desire realm, there are 6 levels. And Lord God, chakra, is on level 2. Here we have wheel-turning kings. They're on level 1. Once you get out of the desire realm, you get into another entire realm called the form realm, and there are 28 levels there. Those are the Brahma gods, and here they are. Brahma kings, bowed in reverence. This is not Brahmins as the top caste in the Indian caste system. The Indian social structure has Brahmins at the top with the N. That's not this. These are Brahma kings who are from the form realm, the second realm of heavens, with 28 degrees of heavens there. And there they are, bowing to the lotus. Now, without going too deep into it, if we want to experience, we in our human bodies can actually get to the Brahma realm. That's so interesting. This is not exclusive to devas. How do you do it? Work on your meditation. If I work on my meditation to the point where I can enter samadhi, dhyana samadhi, while in my human body, my spirit, my Buddha nature, now modified, purified, and tuned up by samadhi, this meditative state, can go to the Brahma realm. Brahma gods are constantly in samadhi, the dhyanas. Okay, is that totally confusing to everybody? But this is part of the way the Buddha describes it. And not only the Buddha says it that way, millions of humans who have done this, who have entered samadhi, whose meditation puts them to that place, are able to experience this. It's a realm of incredible delight, they say. You become 自在, you become very free and comfortable and self-possessed there. Furthermore, 1,000,000 gods from the pure dwelling heavens put palms together and bowed. Who are the gods from the pure dwelling heavens? That's another stage of those 28 levels. Jingju Tian, it's called. The heavens of the pure abode. Again, accessible through meditation. One kind of footnote from the description of the pure dwelling heavens. When meditators are now into the realm of arhats, there are said to be 4 levels of arhatship. They're in the process of ending birth and death. You go through the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stage of arhatship. Those 1st, 2nd, and 3rd are done in the pure dwelling heavens. It's a stop on the way to ending birth and death. And there are different lifetimes where you are reborn as a deva in that pure dwelling heaven, waiting to advance and progress. So it's like a roadmap. And instead of sending us, to Melbourne or north to Brisbane or up to Cairns, it sends us to the pure dwelling heavens. And those are not the ultimate stop. That's the next stop on the way to where? New Zealand, obviously. On the way to Wellington, right? On the way to the South Island. Yeah. Okay. Furthermore, 1,000,000 wheel-turning kings made offerings of decorations made of the 7 jewels. They took the 7 precious things: gold, silver, lapis lazuli, mother of pearl, red pearls, carnelian. And did I leave out rubies? And they made those offerings. These are devas at the 1st level, just above the human realm. And they made offerings of things that they created out of gold and silver, lapis lazuli, etc. And made an offering to the lotus flower. Interesting, huh? And then next, ocean spirits appeared together and respectfully bowed. What a lotus! What an amazing flower. Okay, gonna shift now from text-based to visual and show you some lotuses. Hey. These are lotuses from Gold Coast Damarau. These are guaranteed Australian lotuses. Look at that. Right here. These are, I'm looking out at where some of these lotuses are located. And so, what did we hear? We heard about the Indranila gems and the Vaidurya and the Jambanata gold and all of the 1,000,000 things that adorned it. And here are Saha world lotuses, and we can visualize what that might be. The nets around it and the jewels decorating it. Right? These are real world, our world, ordinary world lotuses. Quite special. And of course, when we look at these lotuses that we find in a lotus pond, you see that stem, which gives a lotus one of its unique characteristics, which is the roots. The rhizomes are down in the mud, in a canal, in a roadside ditch, in a lotus pond, but the blossom is up high, pure and unstained, no matter what kind of yucky water the bottom of the lotus is in. My first experience with lotuses coming from California was getting off the airplane in Bangkok airport in Thailand. and heading towards the monastery in the downtown, and the bus that we were on was stuck in traffic, as often is the case in Bangkok. And I looked out the window to the right, and it was a ditch. The highway that hosted the traffic jam on the way to downtown they hadn't spent a lot of money on upkeep of the highway. Nobody had adopted a highway to clean up the ditch. And the ditch was full of garbage. Oh my goodness, it was just awful. However, at eye level, or from where I was sitting on the bus, there was this magnificent, huge, beautiful, multicolored lotus flower. And another one, and another one, and another one, growing wild in the ditch. And the ditch was full of so much garbage. But these lotuses were spectacular, growing right out of the garbage. You don't get the lotus without the garbage. I mean, you can, I suppose, if it's a pure pond. But here were these special, beautiful, I'd never seen that flower in my entire life, and here it was, rooted in the mud, but beautiful and pure above it. And of course, this is the flower, but what is it symbolizing? The Bodhisattva, why have we adopted this as our standard in the Mahayana? Because the Bodhisattva lives with us in the mud of our world, of our confusion and our anger and our disasters that we make of our lives. And yet, the Bodhisattva is able to inspire us to ascend, to transform the confusion into wisdom and compassion. Okay, so those are lotuses from here at Gold Coast Dharma. I like this one in particular. Yeah. We have to stretch our imagination to match the description of the sutra, but you can see how there's just something very wonderful about the lotus flower. Okay. Now, we're going to finish with the lotus decorations here, and then we'll move on. Here we go. 百万微光摩尼宝，光明普照；百万净福摩尼宝，以为庄严；百万普光摩尼宝，为清净藏；百万殊胜摩尼宝，其光赫异；百万妙藏摩尼宝，光照无边；百万阎浮床摩尼宝，次第行列；百万金刚石子摩尼宝，不可破坏，清净庄严；百万日藏摩尼宝，广大清净；百万可乐摩尼宝，具种种色；百万如意摩尼宝，庄严无尽，光明照耀。A million flavored light Mani jewels illumined it. A million pure blessings Mani jewels made decorations. A million Mani jewels of light made its pure treasury. There were a million supreme Mani jewels, their light radiant and dazzling. There were a million wonderful treasury Mani jewels, their light infinitely radiating. There were a million Jambu banner Mani jewels, successively arranged in rows. There were a million Vajra lion Mani jewels, indestructible, pure, and decorative. There were a million sun treasury Mani jewels, vast, great, and pure. There were a million delightful Mani jewels, replete with various colors. There were a million wish-fulfilling Mani jewels, their decorations endless, their effulgence dazzling. Okay, well, Mani jewels, here they are. This is definitely that kind of spiritual entity that my eyes don't see, but I'm waiting for wisdom to illuminate the presence of these jewels right there around us. We don't have to go anywhere, we just have to change our vision, and then we can see them. And there's 1 million of them. So the first one is Wei Guang. So the point of this is it appeals to the sense of taste. And light, let's see. Light is the feature of all of these decorations. So this one pleases the tongue. Pure blessings, Mani jewels, decorated. Mani jewels that arise from and bestow pure blessings. Mani jewels of light that are the substance of the lotus. Supreme Mani jewels, dazzling in light. Oh yeah. Wonderful treasury Mani jewels, infinitely radiating. They never run out. They keep on shining. Their batteries don't go dead. There were 1 million Jambu banner Mani jewels. Okay, here's a Jambunada is a kind of gold, and it's a banner that indicates the presence of something very special. And these are arranged in rows to please your sense of order. 1 million Vajra lion Mani jewels, indestructible, pure, and decorative. Now, can you imagine a Vajra lion Mani jewel? How, if you got one, you show it off, because it's just the king of beasts in a stone, in a beautiful gem. 1 million sun treasury Mani jewels, vast, great, and pure, the biggest thing in the sky. 1 million delightful Ke Mani Bao, Moni Bao, that when you have one, you're just happy all the time, replete with various colors. And then Mani jewels that fulfill your wishes with endless decorations, dazzling effulgence. So the question would be, what do you treasure? What do you have that is just, when you own it, it's obviously a thing of value. My dad had, he had a wonderful watch. My dad had a Le Coultre watch. It was one of the very first self-winding watches. And it was, I don't know its story, but Le Coultre was a French brand. And by moving his hand, the watch wound itself. And that was one of the very first. Le Coultre made its fame as a premium watch brand of innovation. And I remember this watch the innovation was self-winding. You didn't have to wind it up with your hand, you could just move it. Of course, this is before batteries. It was a spring, but you moved your wrist, and during the day, if you were active enough, you could wind it up. And it also had a date. I remember that watch was just wonderful. The other thing that my dad had was a star sapphire ring. He had a ring that he wore on his finger, along with his wedding ring, was a star sapphire. And it was a black stone, and it was fairly large. And it had, if you looked at it in the right way, you could see the star, and it was a brilliant, crystal clear star it was unmistakable. And there was something about the radiance of that decoration in the black stone that was just, it didn't seem worldly, it seemed world transcending somehow. Like, how could that be so sharply defined, but hidden until you saw it just right, and then the star sapphire. Those are two things that my dad had on his person that I was always amazed by, the star sapphire ring and the Le Coultre watch that he had. So, and it was truly delightful, but it was something, a decoration that was valuable. It had value, and imagine if you had a wish-fulfilling Mani jewel that continued to exude that quality of value and dazzling light that's constantly shining. And mind you, these items that we just looked at, 1 million each, are there to support the lotus. These are secondary. They're just the decorations. The lotus is the thing, and what happens next is we're going to find out what the lotus is about. What's the lotus there for? The lotus is there for the Buddha who sits on it. The lotus itself is just a function for the Buddha. And yet all of these incredible decorations that we've just heard about are there to support the lotus. So how amazing is the state of the Avatamsaka? And mind you, all of this is there to provide Haiyun Bicho his contemplation. And his contemplation, of course, comes back to the mind. So the mind is the source of the contemplation which focuses on the Buddha, who is sitting on the lotus surrounded by these decorations. Welcome to the Avatamsaka state. This is astonishing. And where do we begin? Well, we begin maybe with mindfulness. Yeah, I think, it's raining, so we can't play cricket today, so let's go attend a mindfulness class. Or, my company, as a promotion, was given attendance at a mindfulness class as a way of enhancing the bottom line for 6 employees, and I got named as one of them, so I'll go check it out. We got one toe in the door of mindfulness. Because why? The direction is different. The direction is not out to amuse the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. The direction is in, and you don't do anything. You sit there. Don't just do something, sit there. So it's such the opposite of the standard marketplace exhortation to go out and get involved. So with mindfulness, which is genuinely sparked by, to own it as Buddhists, yeah, we can own it. So it's sparked by Buddhist practice, but not exclusively. Christianity, Catholicism has its contemplative side. Judaism has devakut, these practices of absorption. And Islam has Sufism, So, and of course, Hinduism has many of the practices of yoga. But Buddhism is the tradition that we associate with meditation most profoundly. And mindfulness is the English rendering of what's called vipassana. And vipassana, in the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, got the biggest boost from S.N. Goenka, Indian layman who came up with the 10-day vipassana retreats, and also from the American disciples of Venerable Ajahn Chah, among other Thai monks who taught meditation. When we get to our Chinese Mahayana, mindfulness, as we learned from teacher number 1, or teacher number 2, that is, of Sudana, is just another aspect of Chan. Chan is the uniquely blending of Indian tradition in China. Chan emerged not so much in Buddhist India, that was more Vipassana style, but Chan is the sourced to Bodhidharma, the first patriarch who came before the Tang dynasty in the 5th century, but developed later in the Tang with the advent of the 6th patriarch and other teachers. So we have inherited that tradition, and mindfulness, vipassana, is one branch of that big tree of meditation. So here we are, and mindfulness is superb. It's a genuine way to get your feet wet in the pool of compassion and wisdom. And if that's the door you come through, welcome. When we get to the Chan tradition, when we get to the Avatamsaka Sutra, you can see that what it opens into is the ocean of the mind. And there are people who fight against mindfulness, and they say, oh, it's a trend, it's just a money-making scheme. Mindfulness is just kind of like a franchise like McDonald's or Starbucks, and it's just a fad, it's going to go away. Maybe so. Where did yoga wind up? Well, yoga wound up in your living room. Yoga hasn't wound up. Yoga is growing and growing and growing, taught in the Air Force Academy, taught in boardrooms, taught in hospitals. Where did martial arts wind up? Well, martial arts is on your TV screen or on your movie screen. Hollywood just picked up, learned from Hong Kong, Run Shaw and Wu Xiapian about the spectacular use of the body that is martial arts and is taught worldwide. And Kung Fu studios and karate and taekwondo and in every small town around the world. So indeed, these are exports from Asia that are now, we discovered, are part of our human heritage. And meditation is truly one of those. If you want to go deep, that's where the Mahayana comes in. That's where, if you want to really learn more about this mindfulness thing, this mindfulness stuff, welcome to the Mahayana. And probably, I remember I was interviewed once by ABC, the Australian Broadcasting, by a journalist who was, appropriately skeptical. She said, I want to know, they're teaching mindfulness in the Australian military now, and isn't that antithetical to the Buddha's principles of compassion, that you're training snipers how to kill more mindfully, how to be better snipers? And you could say that. There's all kinds of things taught to combatants who are there to keep the country safe through judicious use of the military. It's naive to think that a country can survive without a strong military. But let's look at it from the point of view of longevity. Buddhism has been around for 2,500 years because it offers real benefits to people. And what if the soldiers who were taught to be more mindful at some point say, well, Sarge, you've given me an order to kill. I've been thinking about this. The more I get into meditation, the more I realize that everybody loves their life, and maybe there's another way other than killing the enemy to solve this dispute. That's big trouble, isn't it? You got a tiger by the tail when you teach soldiers to meditate. Maybe they don't want to fight anymore. Oops. Yeah, so we got to work that out. There will be people among the millions and millions of people who discover benefits of mindfulness. There will be a few who want to go deeper. And when they do, they will find their way slowly to the mind. And who described the mind most adequately, most thoroughly? Certainly the Buddha did a good job in the sutras. And what you discover is that we're working with this thing called virtue, virtues of the nature. And the nature is, from the Buddhist point of view, something that we all have. We've all got it inherently, but we cover it over. And mindfulness is one of the methods of uncovering that nature. And when you do, the Buddha is said to be one, de bei, somebody who is replete with all 10,000 virtues. That's Buddhist code language, meaning all the qualities of our humanity are now available to the Buddha and radiant, and they're described as full of bright light. So among those qualities is compassion and wisdom. And somebody asked me yesterday, he said, I've got a problem. I took the precepts at City of 10,000 Buddhas, the lay bodhisattva precepts. And of course, bodhisattvas want to help people wake up, and they don't want to cause any harm. They say, I want to do all good deeds, everything that's possible, and I want to avoid harming in any way, and I want to serve living beings as best I can. But I am the food provider for my family. I work in the kitchen to feed my spouse, husband or wife, and my kids. And I choose not to eat meat. I don't want to take part in any activity that harms living beings at any point. I don't want to nourish my body with others' bodies. But I'm the only Buddhist in my family, and they depend upon me to provide them food that they like and they want to eat. What do I do? I'm the only vegetarian in the family. How do I survive? How do I do both? How do I keep my precepts and still keep my family happy because I'm the cook? Really good question, and an important, necessary conversation to have. And my best answer is you can't force other people to follow your spiritual search, and don't try. And if you do, you're actually scoring points against your Buddhist practice. If, because you're a Buddhist, you make other people unhappy, you got to think it through again. So what do? Keep your spiritual path alive, and as the opportunity arises, teach not by words, but by example. Meanwhile, don't cause affliction because of your spiritual practice and your change of mind. Most of us were not born Buddhist, born into Buddhist families, unless, of course, you grew up in a Buddhist country, maybe Thai, maybe China, maybe Hong Kong, maybe Taiwan, maybe Vietnam, maybe the Philippines, maybe Singapore, maybe Malaysia. You had an opportunity. Your parents were Buddhist. How many of us, hearing English Dharma, English language Dharma, began that way? Not that many. So, if we are converts to Buddhism, as I am, excuse me, I became a Buddhist officially in 1973. I was already 21, 22 years old at that point. So, because of my conversion, other people have to change their habits and their behaviors? That doesn't make sense. Especially when it's something as important as the dining table. So what do? Here's a way to do it. It takes effort to show others who you care about the benefits that you have discovered. You have to work at it. So if you are the chef, if you're the meal planner and all, you can suggest to others in the family that it might be fun and something a little different to try meatless Mondays, to do maybe one day a week where the food output of the kitchen is going to have something other than meat as the main course. It's not going to be meat-based, it's going to be plant-based. And the way food is moving these days, there are more and more alternatives which don't involve killing of living creatures to provide nutrition for our bodies. Look into plant-based meat or meat substitutes, especially if you have access to an Asian supermarket. You can find some amazing meat substitutes that taste the same and don't involve killing. And that's an okay substitute for people who are pretty much unwilling to give up what they're used to. Here's what's at stake. If you stake S-T-A-K-E, not S-T-E-A-K. Okay, here's what's at stake. That's no pun intended. So if you, as a brand new Buddhist, as a newly committed precept holder, say to someone, I'm eating no more meat, and you should too, and eating meat, you're wrong. In essence, what you're telling that person is their mother didn't love them. Because we all start out being fed by our mothers, either from her own body or as a child being raised by a mom. And mostly moms were the food providers, not always, sometimes it was the dad. But how come You, as a brand new Buddhist, are there preaching to other people that their mother didn't love them. They fed them the wrong food. Bad sell, won't sell. Not a good approach. That argument won't fly. So, don't do it. Don't preach to people that something about their diet choices make them bad or wrong, because you're implying that their mother didn't love them, fed them wrong. Not going to go. So, just don't do that. Instead, show the value of food choices that don't involve suffering and killing. That's not so hard to do. And how do you do it? Replace the food they're used to with something that tastes just as good. If you tell people that in order to be a Buddhist you have to eat bad, food that doesn't taste good, another loser argument. So Master Hua would say, 我的弟子就在饮食方面，这一生在吃亏，来生占便宜。Shifu would say, my disciples in this life actually take a loss in terms of flavor, in terms of food. But in future lives, that's where the benefits pay off. That's where you get the benefit. He said, 一般人不吃素的人，今生觉得占便宜，来生吃亏。He said, non-vegetarians, people who are not my disciples, who insist on flavor first, he says, actually think they're getting a benefit in this life, but in future lives, that's where they pay the price. That's where they get the short end of the stick, because the karma comes around for the harm that they caused by wanting that quick blast of flavor, followed by all the problems digesting the meat that they ate. So that's interesting perspective. So what you do is you say, how about if we do meatless Mondays? If meatless Mondays is too much, too big a step, say, how about one dish per meal, or one dish for dinner one night? Would you allow me to add a veggie dish that I like, that you could actually help me cook, if you like, and I'll share it with you. You can try some, but I'm going to add one veggie dish per meal, maybe once a day, once a week. So instead of a meatless Mondays, you have a meatless meal on the day that you pick, something like that. That shouldn't be too big a sacrifice. Say, meet me halfway, because why? I prefer to eat in a way that doesn't cause harm. Say that. Plant-based. I prefer harmless eating. And when you say it that way, they have to think, well, what do I eat? Harmful eating? Actually, ask the animal that gave up its life for your flavor preference. How long does it taste good? How long is the satisfaction of that flavor in your mouth before you swallow it and it turns into something you don't want to eat? Comes out the other end. Not very long. It's just brief. That brief satisfaction, that burst of flavor. And it's not unimportant, sure. I know when things taste good and when they don't taste good. But when you compare it to the suffering that animals endure on their way to your plate, I'm happy to let go that burst of flavor to ensure that when male chicks come out of the egg, they just grind them up in the factory farms. They just toss them into a grinder. Rooster chicks, no value. It's just disgusting what they do. It's so cruel. They take the male chicks. If they know it's a rooster, they sex the chicks as they come down, and they toss them in a grinder. They have a very short life, and they grind them up, and then feed them back to the cows. Yeah. So once you look at the reality of factory farming, you think, I don't want to participate in that. I would like my dietary choices to match my aspirations for well-being, for myself and for all fellow creatures. So, removing chicken from the diet, removing eggs from the diet. Eggs is a big area of contention. It's one of those gray areas. So, if these are different levels of commitment to plant-based eating, and then you look at the examples of, what we're used to and what is possible. Master Empty Cloud lived to be 120 and did not eat a single Big Mac his whole life. Remember, Master Hua laughed at us because we were looking for orange juice. He said, in Manchuria, we don't have oranges. Why are you so addicted to these things? He said, you think you can't live without orange juice? He said, I never drank an orange, never tasted an orange until I got to Hong Kong. So, these things that we take for granted just because we're used to them, it's a habit. And anyway, so there is a way to be the chef and the master of your kitchen, and also, bit by bit, introduce alternatives to the folks who you care about and want to serve with delicious food. The best way to get people to consider trying your new choices is to be happy with the food that you eat. If they see you gritting your teeth and suffering as a vegetarian just because you're supposed to, you're a bad advertisement for the benefits of plant-based eating. But if they see that simple is good, eat simply so that others can simply eat, and you're very happy eating lower on the food chain. John Robbins, the author, Diet for New America, is already, I think it's in its 12th, 15th printing now. And the video that came from that made the point that to create a single hamburger patty takes 60 pounds of grain, which you then put into the cow, and then the cow has to grow and use all that water, tremendous amount of water to raise the cow, and all the antibiotics and steroids and growth hormones and all that go into the cow. Then you grind it up, kill it, slaughter it, grind it up. You get, out of your investment of 60 pounds of grain, you get a single hamburger patty. Take that 60 pounds of grain and turn it into bread and pancakes and cereal and baked goods and all the stuff. You get pounds and pounds and pounds of wheat products. And I know some of you say, yeah, well, I'm gluten-free, I don't eat wheat. Okay, fine, but you get the point, right? 60 pounds of grain can feed families for a week, versus that one hamburger patty that you then have to divide up into how many chunks, how many bites per person. So, yeah, there's a lot of advantages to eating harmlessly, eating in a plant-based way, but put some effort into feeding your family, cook meat for them, and bit by bit, add something into the diet that tastes just as good, but doesn't involve harm, doesn't involve suffering. That's a good benefit. Then you recite that mantra, and you go, Sadonan Samya Samputo Jujuna Ajurto Nanjuli Juli Janti Soho. They who practice making offerings will certainly obtain their reward. They who take delight in giving will later surely find peace and happiness. Right? That way, you dedicate the merit of the benefits we get from living in these bodies in this planet. We can really do it with your whole heart. Alrighty, we're going to dedicate merit and find out more about lotuses next week. What happens next? The Buddha shows up on that lotus and transmits the Dharma to our teacher, who then shares it with Sudana. Incredible stuff. Avatamsaka Sutra is just astonishing. So much fun to be able to open it up with everybody here. Let's make a wish. Use that mind that's unburdened by too much cholesterol and secondhand suffering. Send it out as far as you can visualize. You can actually think about it as traveling over the ocean, traveling through space. How far can you dedicate merit? Think about it. How far does your mind go? Where do minds touch? Everywhere in space. There's no fences in space, right? Here we go. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. All right. Gratitude to all the friends who helped put this lecture on to the interwebs today. A lot of hard work getting this, all the ducks lined up so we can talk to everybody, including translating into Mandarin, translating into Vietnamese, and sending it out to YouTube and Zoom. Appreciate it deeply. Here we go. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, that's going to do it for us for today. See you all next week. Om Tofo. Bye now.